Hello, another impromptu live. I was sitting here. I was watching some videos while I was sewing. I've been sewing up a couple of pouches. I was just sewing up this lovely chocolate orange number. Obviously because it's brown and then it's got this like burnt orange. It has this like chocolate orange flavour to me. I'm really yummy. It tastes good. That sounds weird, but for those of you that don't know, a lot of colours have flavour. For me, it's a form of synesthesia. So that's why it tastes good. But yeah, and I'd been watching Laura over at Aquamarine 18. She did a really wonderful in-depth review of Misha Magdalen's Outside the Charmed Circle. Which is a book that was published last year, and I hadn't heard of Misha Magdalene before last year, or maybe 2019. Maybe it was 2019 because I listened to a lot of witchy podcasts, and they did some interviews on some of the podcasts I listened to, and I can't remember off the top of my head which ones. Maybe New World Witchery, maybe Down at the Crossroads, maybe is it That Witch Life? What's the one that the Witch Wave? Maybe the Witch Wave of Pan Grossman. And I had put their book on my to read list, to buy list, more to the point. To read would sort of suggest that I already owned it, and I do not. But Laura's review was so in depth and wonderful. Hi Chris, lovely to see you. That I've bumped it up to the top of my to buy list when I'm next in the market for Summit. So yes, if you haven't heard of that, I'd recommend it, and if not, go watch Laura's video and it'll really whet your appetite. But yeah, I was watching some videos with Laura, and then I was like, I need a tea break. I've already sewn a couple of pouches this morning, 1.5 pouches this morning. Really slow going, really sluggish today, really struggling. And for some reason I was sort of just thinking about tarot. The reason is probably that I really like tarot, hence this channel. But I was thinking about tarot, and I was thinking about how I really struggle to have a consistent daily practice. It's very sporadic. I'll go through phases of having a daily practice, then I'll go through phases of it being more weekly, sometimes more monthly. Sometimes I'll have 2 days in a row where I'll read, and then I won't, and then I'll read 3 days after that, like a daily reading. And I'm very sporadic with it, and I do try to journal when I do use it. Hiya, you all right there, Gypsy Heart Tarot? And yeah, I just was starting to think about, because there was a point where I was using tarot every day, and it felt sometimes it feels a bit too much. And I think it depends on how that manifests, whether you are doing just 1 card pull or a 3 card pull. If you're doing a full spread, I think if you're doing a full spread every day, unless you're reading for other people, obviously it's probably a bit much, right? But I remember I got into a point where I was sort of I got very anxious around it, and I was sort of reading every day but pulling more than 1 card, and doing sort of little like a daily spread, you go on Pinterest and there's several card spreads that you can do for every day. And I'm like, and I was writing about it, and I was getting a bit it was beginning to feel like a lot. You're not late at all. I've literally just started 3-4 minutes ago. And I'm unboxing. Which deck were you unboxing? And I've distracted myself. I'm terrible. I should only look at the chat when I've finished a thought, because otherwise it's game over, man. Game over. I was thinking about how there was a period of time between sort of the end of October. It was literally Halloween 2019, and maybe March 2020, where I said I'd lost my tarot mojo. I really struggled with reading the tarot. I psyched myself out because I gave a reading to my husband on Halloween, and I felt like it really sucked because he's a skeptic and isn't really into tarot, and it was meant to be fun, and then he picked like a positional spread, and I don't really read positional spreads anymore. And then I used a Smith-Waite based deck, and I've been reading with pip decks for the most part during 2019, and I felt like I was already out of my element, out of my like usual wheelhouse, and then that on top of psyching myself out reading for my husband, and like anyway, so I lost my tarot mojo. And then as the pandemic hit, I like lost my tarot, what's the word I used? Like my tarot passion, I guess. So I sort of became very like, I didn't even want to look at tarot. And I think it was something to do around the pandemic, right? Like not wanting to, like tarot just felt, not that it felt frivolous or anything, it just felt too, I didn't want to consult stuff. I didn't want to know what was happening because I was already overwhelmed with the constant news cycle and everything. I don't know. It was just this weird thing. The Ganeshan Village. Did Simon at the Hermit's Cave get that one as well? That rings a bell. And so I sort of wasn't touching tarot for a while. But I also think there's something to be said for like psyching yourself out, because I feel like I was overthinking tarot. So when I did that reading for my husband, I was using positional spreads, and I was using a Smith-Waite based deck. And as I'd said, I had been reading with pip decks. So I'm looking down, so I've got books in front of me and I've got decks in front of me. And I've been reading pip decks, and I've been reading mostly non-positionally. I was freestyle, I call it freestyle reading. I don't know if that's what you actually call it, freestyle reading. And so I don't know where this thought came from, but I was having a tea break and I was just like, you know, I've been sort of going over sort of Tarot on Earth and Tom Benjamin's Tarot de Marseille class that he did last year. And, you know I've been reading with the Numinous Tarot and the Melanated Classic, but like I thought, do you know what, I'm gonna get my just have some more like Pip and Marseille decks out again. It just feels like another shift again in my brain. Hiya Tycon, you all right? I haven't really formulated any of these thoughts properly. I haven't written any notes. I'm literally just sort of verbal diarrheaing at you. Charming. Oh, it's just at the right temperature. But yeah, when I was looking at I was sitting here and I sat back down with my cup of tea and my pouch to finish sewing that. And I was looking over at my bookshelf and looking at the plethora of tarot books. Weirdly, as I've said before, I don't have any standalone tarot meaning books, maybe barring one of the ones that I've picked up here. But I was looking at a lot of the books, and they're very like a lot, right? So I've got like tarot and psychology. There's like, hang on. There's like Jung and tarot. The tarot, oh god, this has gotten messed. Oh, my poor books. Oh my god, just me. It's so shagged. Oh my god. I'm so not precious with my books. I really need to be a bit nicer to them. The cover is scrumpled and torn, and I just like highlight and write in the front cover. Anyway, hello Lucy's Reflections. And I've got Tarot, History and Symbolism and Divination by Robert M. Place. I've got another Robert M. Place one here, which is this one, which, full disclosure, I've read a very small amount of this one. I can barely even hold the damn thing, which is the Tarot, Magic, Alchemy, Hermeticism and Neoplatonism, again by Robert M. Place. The Ultimate Guide to the Waite-Smith Tarot, the Rider-Waite Tarot rather, which breaks down every little detail. I mean, everyone has a copy of Holistic Tarot by Annabelle Wynne. Even something like, Lon Milo Duquette's Thoth Tarot book, like, they're very a lot is the way I describe them. I mean, I've dipped in and out of this one over the years, but I find the approach very overly cerebral and overly sort of, it feels very neat and delineated and structural and like And you know, what I'm realizing through the studying that I've been doing with Lenormand, which is very sort of the style is more sort of like reading a storybook, or the way that it's sort of it's very flexible and sort of down to earth, you know. And I think it did start with this, I'm going to be honest, you know, Tarot on Earth, you know, this approach, Tom Benjamin's approach, which he's now sort of applying with Tarot Toolkit, which is the one that's more sort of based on learning with the Waite Smith, which is for intermediate readers. Why is the cushions falling off? And there's something, I think I've sort of realized that the kind of reader I am, and I'm trying to sort of just go with it. And the kind of reader I am is much more of a what's the word? I don't know if I can find the right word for it. Just maybe just kind of like practical, but then that doesn't feel right because I do use tarot for psycho-spiritual work. Just a more laid back, maybe, I don't know, because then it implies that people that don't read that way are not laid back. And I don't mean as a person, I mean I am a very uptight, anxious person, like I am not, I mean just like generally. And I don't, and this is the thing, like I am a massive nerd, and I am I have a couple of friends who call me a research witch. And that is not to mean that I don't love the reading. I love the reading, I love the research, I love learning new things about tarot and the way that it can be applied, and all the different like ways that you can play with tarot. So, you know, then there's the different ways that you can use tarot other than just readings. So you've got stuff like, just dropping things, I need to move this. So I've got stuff like, I probably should have brought all these out, 21 Ways to Read Tarot by Mary Kay Gray. This is like so old, you can tell I've spilt water on it before. It's so fact. Poor book. I remember the day I did that, I was so upset. I've had this about, when did I get this book? 2004, 2003? When did it come out? When did it come out? It's just out of my purely. 2006. Oh, it must have been. Oh, this is the second printing. I got this into, was it the second? Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I guess it was 2006. Or am I getting confused with what's the other one she's got? Tarot for Yourself. That's it. I'm getting it mixed up with this. This one, I'm sure I've had this one longer. This has got the mysteries from Covent Garden. That's not even there anymore. That shop on 2002. Okay, there. This one I've had since 2003, 2004. That's what I'm getting mixed up. So yeah, there's like tarot. Mary Kay Gray's done some great books about like things you can do. There's like the Tarot Playbook. Not a massive fan of this. I know Andy Matzner has got some ones that look really good. There's, you know, this one's got loads of exercises in it. The Key to Tarot. Each card associated gets like a little thing that you can do. So you've got like, here, this one has a spell for the magician, because the magician, you know, learning to be a good judge for justice. There's an exercise for that. A solar day for the sun. So, you know, there's all these different exercises. These feel a little bit different. This feels like tarot play rather than tarot overthinking. But, you know, we do these things. We do these deep dive. It hasn't been in the bath with me, but it did. I did. Luckily, what I spilled on it was just water. A large, almost a pint of water. And there was a point where I was worried that the pages were not gonna like dry out or that they would stick together, but luckily I picked it up quick enough, and then most of the water went over the rest of the table, but it did get wet enough that it's permanently you can see it, right? It's permanently wrinkled. Yeah, tarot play and tarot study are two different things for me. So for me, these are like, you know, tarot play. And then tarot research. These are like tarot study, they're workbooks, right? And then there's like tarot research or tarot, I don't know, that stuff like this, right? The Robert M. Places and your Jungs and Tarots and your, God, this one's shagged as well. It's covers peeling off of it. What the hell? Anyway, so don't look where my books are a mess. Because you can tell they're loved. This one's the most pristine out of all of them because it's the one that I haven't read much of. I think I've read up to the oh yeah, I literally read up to in the beginning, so not much at all. I can remember the picture and go, oh, this is a lot. But yeah, do we like over? Hi Laurie, hi Robin. Do we overthink tarot? Is that Wang's book? Yeah, it's the hang on, no, it's not Wang's book, sorry. It's the Arthur Rosengarten one. But there is and it's got a foreword by Lon Milo de Cat. It's not, but I know that there's another one, isn't there, about tarot and psychology. And then the Jung and Tarot one is by Sally Nichols. And I know that Sally Nichols either last year or the year before came out with a new like Marseille book as well, to mixed reviews apparently. So yeah, I've realized that I enjoy the researching. I really enjoy looking at all the different symbolism on every single card and like nerding out. But I find that because there's so much information vying for attention when I'm doing those readings, that sometimes it can be a hindrance. And I know some people who they can integrate that information really, really well. And to them, it's just like more strings to their bow. It's more quivers to their, more arrows to their quiver. Quivers to their arrows, that doesn't make sense. More arrows to their quiver that they can pull out when they are doing well, I don't know what that is. That's not you don't throw arrows like that. That's axe throwing. That's me doing my bloody D&D character Bodmal throwing. She does the axe throwing. I was playing D&D last night. But I think I just psych myself out a bit. And I think I just realized that when you look at like people like Enrique Enriquez, or the way that the information is presented in Caitlin Matthews' Untold Tarot, which you might be able to tell I really liked. Or the way that Tom Benjamin presents information and the way to learn. Hey, Kat. Hello. That's always just, I hear it in that worm from Labyrinth's voice. Hello. Come in and pop in and see the missus. And I just think for me, and I think because I generally as a rule, despite using the numinous quite a bit lately, is I'm a Pip girl, I'm a Marseille girl. I never, honestly, if you told me like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that I would be reading Marseille, I would have been like, yeah, okay. And I know I say it all the time, but it still kind of blows my mind a bit. And what I love, even like someone like Vincent Petici, right? When he talks about the way that he reads tarot and like word associations and stuff like that, he still has a very sort of matter of factness about him. If those of you who know who he is or watch any of his stuff, I recommend him. He's a proper like old New Yorker, and he's quite a character. I enjoy his content, but like. If you've got these, let's just pull 3 cards. So like we've got the Hermit and this and this. Okay, so we've got 3 cards, right? And the way that like someone like Enrique Enriquez reads, he talks about eye rhymes and sort of directionality and almost like reading stuff like a story or a comic book strip, right? So it becomes, he's looking at, not necessarily what does, 6 mean? What does swords or the element of air mean? He's looking at the actual, like, layout. I mean, this looks quite vulval when you think about it, right? And then we've got like a hermit crab here in this little shell. So this could be, I mean, if you're going to be like really, you could be literally like this little clam, this little, you need to coax it out of its shell. And you will have all of the delightful emotional pleasures. Like that could be a very like down to earth reading of something, but obviously there's the context of the question. But you know, Enriquez will sometimes just lay 3 cards down just as a general reading and then just read it. Obviously, you know, if you're asking a question, that's going to like color what the reading is, because you're then looking at it within a specific context, which is better, right? Generally, as a rule. But yeah, and I'm not saying that that's just how I read. Like I've definitely been looking at number associations and numerology with regards to tarot, because it's something that's come up again with a study that I'm doing. And I did it originally for Tarot on Earth, and I looked at like 5 or 6 different numerological systems and sort of came up with my own. But because I'm looking at it again, I've looked at some other numerological systems and just refining that. So I do use numerology, and I do use associations with the elements. And again, depending on how you read, some people switch, you know, the swords and wands around. Some people see swords as fire because they're forged in heat, and some people see the wands as air because the tree branches grow up into the air, and that all feels like the heat of the fire for the sword and the trees growing up into the air, tree branches growing up into the air. It feels very literal to me, whereas the association of swords as air, of intellect, of slicing through, of thoughts, and wands as fire and fuel and passion and desire, they feel more metaphorical, and I prefer that metaphorical rather than practical, because then for me, if you're looking at something like 2 cups, or if you're looking at the swords, or if you're looking at coins, you can then use the suit themselves as literal as rather than metaphorical. And Tom Benjamin talks about that a lot. He's like, what is a coin? What literally is a coin? What do coins do? They can buy things, they can bribe, they bestow a certain level of superiority for people who, or elitism for people who have lots of it. That it provides privilege for people who have a lot of it, you know. So I feel like I enjoy the elements as metaphorical generally, as a rule. On saying that though, you can also see the elements as physical. Like, what does water do? Water washes, water cleanses, water purifies, water can be very destructive. It can flood. So, but I feel like taking just those few things, the elements, the actual suits themselves, the numbers, to me, that almost feels like enough with the context of the context of the question. And I freestyle read. I always freestyle read with Pip decks and Marseille decks, so I don't even have the extra added context of a position when I lay a card down. That card does not mean a certain thing in that position. They're read as a whole, much like Lenormand when you're looking at a 9-card portrait spread, or if you're looking at a Grand Tableau, you're reading them together as a collective, right? They're all influencing each other. The one position does not mean a certain thing in a Grand Tableau unless you are using the houses, and then of course those houses will color and flavor the card that is laying on top of that position. But that's, you know, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Robin says, I often look at coins as plates and wheels, food to sustain us. Yeah, and also because coins represent the realm of earth, which is physicality, which also would include things like food, sustenance, that kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense. So, you know, that's kind of how I've realized I prefer to read. And then of course there will be times where I am using directionality, I am using eye rhymes, I am using the sort of I am looking at this flower being trapped amongst the swords, whereas these flowers are allowed to be free, you know. And I think that sort of becomes sort of more of an intuitive thing. You're like, you know, so, you know, with regards to directionality, you could be like, these two cards, they're not looking at each other, they're both looking at the same, they're not looking away from each other, but they're looking in the same direction. So then you're like, oh well what are they looking at? And they're looking at the two cups. So you could read these as like the queen, is it the right, oh, it's the queen, the queen, is it Reina the Rain, what is it, how do you pronounce it in French? Queen, Reina, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The Queen of Swords and the Hermit, and read them as them, and then read the Two of Cups as the Two of Cups. But you could also do that whole, well, they're both, you sort of don't really concern yourself with who they are in the deck with regards to being a major at a court, and you just look at there's these two people that are looking at these two cups, which can represent a partnership, some kind of polarity. Maybe it's a project that they're both eyeing up, and they are going to come at it from a different perspective. Oh, where is it? It's the wrong, I can't. Bum holes. There it is. It's because everything's the other way around in StreamYard. It flips everything around, so I don't know what I'm looking at. No, that's still not right. They need to be here. Oh my God. So they're looking at this, but this, you could say, well, maybe this dude is more of a like, he's not a team player, he's a hermit, he wants to go away and like work on the project himself. And then this woman is very logically minded and problem solving, and she wants to come at it from a very logical, methodical point of view. And you're like, right, well, how do these two people in this team come together and tackle this partnership that they need to work on, this project that they need to work on? This is just an idea. Maybe it's a question about work, I don't know, it's just an example. But yeah, I think that yeah, that's right, Gypsy Heart, Govinda. Cards can be read different ways. Obviously, different cultures will read in different directions. Obviously, I'm coming at it from the and that's fine. I think it's the context with which you're reading, right? So if I was Japanese, I potentially would read a slightly different direction, right? I might, because I tend to read, you know, from right to left, but that's because culturally I've been raised to read that way. If I was Japanese, I might read my cards the other way around. And I think as long as you're consistent with that, like if I then made the decision that I'm only going to read that way now going forward, it would be rain in French would rhyme with pen, I think. Ren. Thank you. I think, yeah, it's like when some people will read with reversals, some people won't read with reversals. I think as long as before you do the reading, you decide whether you're going to read with reversals or not, or whether you are a reversals reader or not, as long as you're clear in your mind rather than constantly changing it up. I mean, have fun and play with it and practice with reversals and see if they work for you. But I don't think if you're like sitting down as a professional reader, for example, I'm not a professional reader, but say, for example, you sat down as a professional reader at a fair, and like the first 3 people you read with reversals, and then the next 2 people you didn't, and then you swapped back. Like, I feel like that would confuse things, not only for yourself, but also for those people that believe that the cards sort of pick up your energy or whatever with bunny rabbit is. That would confuse the cards as well. I don't know. Let's just have a look at the comments, because I just know I'm going to get distracted if I'm trying to talk and look at the comments. Look at the comments, and I'm going to eat some biscuits. Oh, Dr. Nommy, where is she? She's gone downstairs again. So let's go scroll back up and see what I've missed. Boop, 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 boop. Right. So we've got Govinda in. I've said hello to Lucy. I bought the Numerous Tarot First Edition last, says Lucy's reflection. Has it arrived? What do you think of it if it has? I really, really love it. Govinda says, I've been there before, Kelly. Sometimes my mind says, do a structured spread, but very quickly I go back to freestyle readings. Oh, last week. Okay, cool. It takes several lifetimes to get through it all. That's the thing, right? And there's constantly more and more books. There are so many tarot books that I want to read. And I haven't gotten through all of the ones that I have, or worked through all the, I was going to say assignments, all the exercises in all of my books. Totally find overthinking doesn't help me, says Alina. Mary Kay's been, I read that one. Robin says, if you had one friendly, all-encompassing tarot book, which one would you recommend for those of you who don't want to get bogged down in study? Robin. That's a really... Do you mean just like one about the tarot rather than like a workbook? Because if you're looking at workbooks, again, it would depend on the system that you're looking at. If you were looking to learn Marseille, I would say Tarot on Earth is a workbook, and then maybe Untold Tarot or Yoav Bendov's Marseille Tarot Revealed. Get one or the other. I think this is a bit of a quicker read, and it is a bit more sort of lays out loads of different things that you can play with, whereas Yoav Bendov's is great as well, but is a longer read. I don't think it would bog you down. It doesn't feel like a very sort of bogged down book. It's actually quite, but compared to this is very straightforward and very quick to read. So maybe start with, Tarot on Earth and Untold Tarot. If you're looking at Rider-Waite Smith Waite based, for a workbook, I would say, this is for beginner. If you're a beginner, I would go with maybe Tarot 101 by Kim Huggins. So I'm looking over there because I'm looking at what I've got on my shelf. If you're an intermediate, I would go with Tarot on Earth. Your Tarot toolkit. Can you hear that drilling? Tarot Toolkit by Tom Benjamin. And then as a book about the tarot rather than a workbook, I would say The Complete Guide to where is it? 78, there it is. 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollock, or her newer updated one that she released, which was Tarot Wisdom, which I don't have, but most people say if you've read Tarot work 78 Degrees of Wisdom, it is worth also looking at Tarot Wisdom because it's a nice overview. It's got tarot meanings in it. It goes into depth about the majors, but not too much. She covers some spreads for you in the back, and she talks about types of readings, and she talks about, here we go. She gives examples of spreads, which I really like. So, where's Tarot 101? I'll just grab it for you. So I'd say it's not just about having a tarot book. I think it's about I always recommend to people who ask me, I always recommend a tarot book that's got some meanings in it and some other information and a workbook. So if you're a beginner, you probably couldn't go too wrong with these, or like I said, Tarot Wisdom. But I'm way beyond that at this point. I mean, some of these books I've had for 20 years. They're really, really old. I mean, like this one, Tarot Spells. When did I get this one? This is another one that's got mysteries on the back. I spent most of my student loan in mysteries, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. When was this one? I think this was a slightly... 2000. This one was published. This one says it's the 2006 copy, but I'm pretty sure I did get a copy in around 2000 because I remember having it when I was at uni. So I think, did I lend my copy? I think I lent my original copy to a friend at work, and then just said I'll keep it, and bought another one when we were in Mysteries. But yeah, let's see what other people are saying. She says she doesn't want to overthink, proceeds to unload bookcase. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a tendency to overthink, and I've finally come to the realization that as much as I love the studying and the research, I love it, I find that when it comes to reading, I like a stripped back approach. And I guess it's a bit like, you know, I love learning about, you know, certain things, other things, maybe like if we're looking at, you know, architecture or the interior design of like the Victorian era is obviously quite a vast expanse of the 19th century, and you can look at how those fashions change, whether that's through clothing or through sort of interior decorating, especially as the Industrial Revolution sort of really get into full swing, and you started to get mass production of things. You know, mass produced furniture started to become a thing, and people, you know, middle class became more of a thing, and people were able to work their way out of poverty a little bit more, not a huge amount. And then you had the backlash against that with people like the arts and crafts movement, and people like William Morris, sort of revering craftsmanship and handmade items and not having that mass-produced stuff. As much as I love learning about the Victorian styles, the various Victorian styles of decor, I wouldn't necessarily want all of those in my house, because a lot of them are very busy and would stress me out. I like the colors and I like elements of it, and I would pull elements of it, but I wouldn't throw it all into my house. So I think learning about something and using it in practice is two different things. Does that make sense? Like, I finally realized I can study tarot and psychology and hermeticism and Neoplatonism and various other things, the symbolism in the tarot and the history of tarot and all those things, without having to apply it to my readings. The one that I am struggling with, though, is with regards to the Thoth, because the Thoth feels very much like, you know, because it's rooted in sort of Kabbalistic stuff, which again can itself be problematic. Obviously Crowley himself was problematic. He was very clearly anti-Semitic. He was which is interesting considering he used Kabbalah, so obviously wanted to take what he wanted to take, but was still rude about where it originated. He was obviously racist, as there's quotes out there of him using the N-word and just being really awful. I don't even want to hear people saying he's of his time, because there were people of his time who were not behaving and not saying awful stuff like that. So but he, you know, with regards to like Kabbalah and, you know, planetary associations and stuff like that, it feels very like in that for the Thoth. And I do love the deck, and I feel like once I've paid my dues and done all of the researching and studying for this, I will probably then like take what works for me and disregard the rest and read it in my own way to an extent. I guess that's what we all do, right? People say like read the book and then throw it away, like, because once you've internalized what works for you, you then start to go read from a more intuitive place. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe I'm having this like battle between my brain and this sort of more sort of base like intuitive level, the gut level. And I need to sort of allow the gut level to sort of lead the way a bit more now, because, you know, I'm not new to the tarot. I've got my first tarot deck in about 1996, 1997. And I did have a little chunks of breaks in between then. But I mean, I've been consistently looking at reading, studying the tarot since like, I can never remember what year I sort of stumbled upon Kellyanne Maddox. I think it was like 2012, 2013. And I really started to like look at it more seriously from about 2014, like consistently. So like what, 7-8 years? I don't know. Oh, my tea's starting to go on the turn. Laurie says, Tom is good at advocating for you to own your own meanings. Yeah, he is. Whilst also it making sense to the context of the cards, the element, the number, and that kind of thing. Morning, Paul. Coming from cartomancy background, says Govinda, myself stripping the cards to the bare essentials and build from that in application to the seeker is a great approach. Robin says, Enrique was an eye-opener in my studies. I actually got to meet him for a coffee a couple of Septembers ago. I remember you talking about that. That's really cool. He seems quite the character. But I'm saying that, so do you, Robin, in the nicest possible way. I think cards can be read in all directions, not just left to right. Cultures all over the world read. I sort of covered that. Hi, Tarot Diva, Ellie. Gypsy Heart Tarot Govinda said, I think that's why I'm attracted to Lenormand, being able to lay out cards and take any direction in telling the story. That approach could be used with tarot. Right, exactly. And that, I would say, especially during 2018, 2019, that 9-card portrait was predominantly how I read with Pip decks and Marseille decks. I did the 3x3x3. And it was between sort of Kelly Fitzgerald and Tom Benjamin reading like that on their channels and using those techniques. So you see them, looking at the 3 horizontal lines, looking at the 3 vertical lines, looking at the corner cards, looking at the large diagonals, and then doing things like knighting within that, but using tarot. I found really, really interesting looking at like the bottom card of a row and seeing what is pressing down on those cards and what those influences are. Really, really cool. And then looking at, with regards to tarot, then at pulling in those tarot things. So like how many of the same number are in there? How many of the same suit are in there? Is there an overabundance of earth or water? Are there lots of like aces or, what is something beginning? That kind of thing. Are there a lot of court cards? Are they looking at each other or looking away? That kind of thing. And I find to this day, just a 3-card spread or the 9-card like portrait spread is like my favorite to use for both tarot and Lenormand. I'm still struggling with grand tableaus because they are a lot, but it's a process, right? So I liked Chris's approach the other week with reading tarot in a Lenormand style, something I haven't tried myself, but it seemed to work well. Yeah, it does. Like I've got that in one of my journals, one of my diaries. I have that I did a few years ago. I've got a tarot spread. That's a tarot reading. Spreads. So here I've got the 9-card spread. I have it like written out as the Lenormand style, and then on the other side I have it as the tarot style. But you can add in. You can read it. Where's it gone? But you could also use all of these Lenormand techniques with tarot. So you can see here, I've got some like arrows of directionality and stuff, and how you would lay them down. So you'd read 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just depends. It's personal preference. Whereas most people, when they do tarot, they do it like 3. They'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've come to lay my tarot because when did I do this one? What's the date on this? February 2018. So, oh God, 3.5 years ago almost. So I would say now with my 9-card, for tarot, I lay it down as I would a Lenormand with the center card first, and then I do the ones around it. I love Bendov myself. I just pick what I want from it. I always want to read cover to cover, but can't make it happen though. Hi, Deanne. You all right? Everyone's saying hello to everyone, which is nice. So maybe it's like learning everything about the universe, but also wanting to really fly to the moon. I think I'm looking for a sort of Rosetta Stone with regards to reading, something that works for all. I tend to sort of open read for tarot, Marseille and Lenormand. But tarot is Marseille though, right? Do you mean Smithwaite? The book with the spreads looks so cute with the colours. Thank you. Some people say Marseille sets them free. Yeah, so for me, the Marseille, that was for me. The Marseille set me free. I found Marseille originally, and I think a lot of people do that come to the tarot. They look at these cards, you know, and because we have no prior reading experience, it's probably different if you come from a cartomantic. You know, if you've read playing cards, you probably have a different response. But you know, if you're new to tarot and you pull that out, I'm like, what am I looking at? You know, what? It's 10 coins. But that's why, unless you're looking at like, well, coins are, what do coins do? Coins are earth. What does earth do? There's 10 of them. What does 10 mean? Unless you've got that context, it's not gonna be very helpful. And I can see what you would mean with regards to a Smith-Waite based tarot, because I've got one here. I've got my magical forest here. Because they're scenic, right? That's why we call them scenic pips. Some people call them situational pips, but I've come to take calling them scenic pips because they depict scenes. So, you know, this frog, what are they? They're looking at the ship coming in. They're standing there alone. They're in front of the water. It seems to be sort of a twilight or dusk, sort of dusk or dawn. It doesn't look particularly sunny, but the waters are calm. Like, it tells a story. Hello, Ishi. You know, this little fox. This fox has been working very hard. They are sort of standing back, having a little break. They're resting on their shovel or their hoe, and looking at their handiwork. It tells a story, right? The way that, like, the way that the seven, I was going to say, I was trying to work out whether I get the 7 of coins out of this deck, but it could take a while. And you all know what a 7 of coins looks like. Most of you would know what the 7 of coins looks like in a deck. 2, 3, 4, that's the 6 of coins. Nope. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But you know what I mean? That tells more of a story than 7 coins just laid out. So I think to start, yeah, it can be really helpful because you can read this without the context of the number, the element, and the suit. So I think that's why a lot of us like Smith-Waite to begin with. Of course, lots of people, because, you know, the Marseille is a French deck, and you get a lot more French readers and a lot more people in mainland Europe. The noise, can you hear me okay? A lot of the readers in mainland Europe do, you know, read Marseille, and it's their first, and then may go on to read Smith-Waite, but it's a cultural thing as well because it's more prevalent to have a Marseille over there. And then plenty of people, you know, have the Thoth as their first deck. Plenty of people. The Thoth, I believe, was Lon Milo Duquette's first tarot deck. There's another prominent tarot writer who said that Thoth was their first deck, but I can't remember off the top of my head who that was. But yeah, you know, there are people out there, and it's just, my first deck was a Smith-Waite adjacent deck. It was the Osho Zen. And when I bought that back in the 90s, I had no idea that there was, you know, these different systems of the Smith-Waite and the Marseille and the Thoth. I was just looking at what I thought was pretty, and it was the Osho Zen, and that's the one I bought. A lot of the Rider-Waite-Smith cards read to me of balance and perspective. You say that, but I find the sword suit sort of skews way more sort of negatively. And in some decks heavily so. Like, I really thought the Brady Tarot was beautiful, but the thing that stopped me buying it was just so how negatively skewed the sword suit was. And I'd already gotten into that headspace of reading all the cards start from neutral, and then the question, the position in the spread if you use them, and that kind of thing, then, and the cards interacting with each other, then flavors that reading, or flavors that card. But yeah, Marseille set me free because I started to feel that I was I was being hamstrung by the images in the Smith way. I was looking at the image too much, and it was sort of because the images on the Smith way are just a snapshot. And this, I think Vincent Patici says this. He says that the Smith way are literally just a snapshot of one of the meanings of that card, that particular card. Like it's just a snapshot of one. And he talks about why that's fine and how it can work as long as you're aware of the other meanings. But for me, with the Marseille or with a pip deck, you don't have that snapshot. It encompasses all of them because it depicts none of them. And I could only get to that point after having like a heavy basis in Smithway and then wanting to move on from that. How do you feel about reading with majors only? I actually don't find it limiting at all. I found everything in there I need. Yeah, I know loads of people will separate their majors or they'll buy majors only decks. It's not something I particularly do. It's something I played about with a bit more with regards to like spreads, where it would be like, this is a deck, a reading that only uses majors. Or there are readings out there that only use the court cards, for example. It's like a play experiment type thing, but for like actual readings, I don't really read. I like to have the whole deck. I like to play with a full deck. See if I've missed any issues commenting. I think I'm up to date with the chat. Oh my god, it's 1 o'clock. Anyway, goodness. This was only meant to be like a quick tea time break type. It's actually lunchtime. Just sort of thoughts, like a verbal vomiting of thoughts. Of just like, I think I overthink the tarot. So I think some of us overthink it. And actually it's okay to strip that right back and there, you know, there's nothing wrong with learning all of that stuff that's out there. I mean, as I showed you some of the books that I have. You know, I love me a bit of a deep dive, but I think that I've allowed that more often than not to hinder me, because when it comes to applying it practically, and I think for me, all I'm trying to say is basically I'm a basic bitch when it comes to tarot. I love learning, but when it comes to readings, for me, I like to keep it quite practical, and it's just understanding that about myself. And obviously different people will read different ways. Some people want to take a really analytical approach. Some people want to do the real looking at symbolism deep dive approach. Some people will take more of a psychological model approach. Some people will just read completely intuitively. Yeah, man, whatever. Some people will read with positions. Some people will freestyle read like myself. Some people are going to prefer Thoth over Marseille. Some people prefer Smithwaite. And it's all good, right? Because we're all part of that vast tapestry of people that read tarot or read just cards in general. We all bring something different. We all do something different, right? So, you know, we don't want to eat the same food every day. And so it'd be boring if all food was the same, right? Same with readers. We all bounce off each other. We all have our own ideas and styles of reading. And yeah, it's all good, basically. I think I'm coming to a realization. And I've spoken about how I like this more simplistic approach. But I think it's the first time where I'm like, wow, I really am starting to step into that and sort of accept it and embody it and realize that it's my style. And the only other way I can describe it is, as an artist, you're constantly trying to strive for, or someone who is a new artist, constantly going, what's my style, and striving for a style. But as you continue to make art, a style emerges and you don't even necessarily realize it until you take a step back after a certain period of time and have a look at what you've done. maybe over a year, over 2 years, over 3 years, and you realize you do have a style, and that style is your style, and it may have certain elements of other artists that you like and admire, that you've sort of mixed them up and added your own little extra sauce, the thing that you do, and that is your style. And it's hard to see it when you're right up in it all the time. And it's the same with reading. That's the only other way I can describe it. I think because I've kind of settled in a way that I kind of have an idea of what my art style is, and it will change and evolve as I change and evolve, and the more art that I make. Morning, Laura. I was talking about you earlier. I hope your ears weren't burning. All good. I was just really bigging up that amazing book review you did of Misha Magdalen's book, Outside the Charm Circle. I really loved it. I've already commented, you might have seen, and I think everyone should go and watch it and then go read the book. I haven't read the book yet, but I want to more than ever now. So yeah, I'm gonna go because I'm just repeating myself, I think, at this point. Funny too, I think, because I don't have to read for clients. It frees me up to read however I want. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have to read for other people. I don't read. I'm not a professional reader. So I think if I started reading professionally, I'd have another existential crisis about the tarot and reading. But I don't know if that'd ever happen. If it does, we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Not we'll get to that bridge when we cross it, because you've already gotten to it if you've crossed. Getting all my metaphors and idioms mixed up. Laurie says, that's what I've said about the swords, and I got hammered with opposing comments. With regards to what, like a specific deck or just the swords in general? No one can argue that the swords do look a little bit more negative in the Smith way, like against it. Like they fucking do. Like you have eyeballs, you can see that like someone stabbed laying on the floor. Oh, it's a metaphorical stabbing. Yeah, but it's still like the visual representation of it is like pretty dark. Read for a few friends, would say it's intuitive, but with a reasonable knowledge of Rider Waite Smith. That's the thing. Like, there's some people who go, "Oh, I've never read a tarot book in my life. I just read intuitively," and I'm like, like I'm like, oh my god, like I feel like you need to at least read one book, and then throw the baby out, but not the bathwater. No. You're supposed to throw the bathwater out, not the baby. It shows you where I am with regards to like kids. Throw the baby out, keep the bathwater. What the fuck? Other way round. Sorry. Freudian slip, I guess, there. So yeah, I think I get a little twitchy-eyed when people say they've never read a book, like, and when the ones that are so proud of it as well, like it's a badge of honor. Well, I've never read a tarot book. I only read intuitively. I feel like I'm gonna get like some hate comments now, but what's new? I'm like, but that's like saying, I don't know. That's like saying I've never read a book on the runes. I only read intuitively. I think you should probably read at least one book on the runes if you're going to read them. Why is tarot different? Like, that's just silly. Why would you not furnish yourself with at least some information or a passing grasp of what the bloody cards mean? And I know I said you can pick these up and start reading straight away because they are situational, scenic, situational pips. But at the same time, like, do yourself a favour and read a book. It's all good. Yeah, Laura says I can't wrap my head around that. I'm interested in something I want to read. That's the thing, right? I want to read. Well, clearly, if you could see my bookshelf and the books that I have lying, the stack of books next to my bed, and then the stack of the books on the floor next to my bed, and then the books overflowing on my bookshelf, and then the books that are literally on my desk, and then the books that are down there on the floor, and then the books that are over in the corner there, and then there's two piles of books. There's one pile of books there, and then can you see behind the makeup brushes, there's another pile of books there. I want to read all the books. I love me some books. I think there comes a point where you can maybe get a bit like armchair tarot reader, where you're reading about tarot and reading about reading, but not actually reading. A bit like being an armchair magician. Although some people say you can be an armchair magician because you can use this to travel to the astral realm and do all your work there. So I don't know, although some other magicians would say you need to incorporate the element of the physical realm, someone like Jason Miller would say, because you need to root that etheric work and ground it into reality, into the physical world, in order to help your magic manifest. So your mileage may vary. So anyway, that was a weird tangent. Yeah, you kind of have to know what the rules are. But yeah, that's what I was trying to say. That's it. Not the baby. Throw the bathwater out. No, throw the baby. Anyway, the bathwater baby thing. What I was trying to get to say is you need to know the rules before you can break the rules. Yeah, exactly. Robin put it much better than I could. She says, glad to have caught you. Touch base with a few of you. When I was introducing the tarot to my daughter, her overview of the swords was like the cycle of anxiety and depression. Oh God, maybe that's why I've sort of struggled with the swords sometimes. The rules were written to be broken. If you don't know them, you don't know the confines that some are working under. Progress is made when we can develop upon the rules. Exactly, Ishi. I think it helps to know the rule book and know what you're breaking, you know, how to sort of bend those for sure. Anyway, it is gone lunchtime, and I think my husband is wanting to go for a walk with the dog. So that's probably what we're going to do. And it was lovely chatting with you. My half an hour plan turned into a 1 hour ramble. I have lots of books on my desk, even more books than before. But anyway, thank you for keeping me company and for joining in this like ramble about like overthinking tarot. And yeah, I hope that you all stay safe, wear a mask, socially distance, you know the drill, wash those little paws of yours. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Ciao.